I've had a few comments about some issues people have with their machine. So I wanted to do a couple troubleshooting videos. And so I picked this comment here about the cast on unraveling. I'm not quite sure what's going on with your machine, but here's what was happening to me when I first started to learn how to use it when I got this machine a few years ago. So hopefully this helps, and this is what's happening with you and can fix your problem so you can enjoy using your machine. When you go to do the cast on, I think of it as like a chain. When you start to crochet, it's your foundation. It does not count as a row. And when you're hand knitting, I'm not a hand knitter, I'm a crocheter, so I use more crochet terms, but I believe when hand knitting, your cast on doesn't count as a row either. So you kind of have to build that correct foundation, just like a house. And once you have a good foundation, the rest of your house is built really nicely, right? If you have a good foundation for your project, your rest of your project can go smoothly as well. So we start at our white needle and I go under the needle so it's hooked on, right? And then we're going to go over or on top of the next needle and then under, over and then under. And we do this one time around, and this is our foundation chain, you could call it, the cast on or a yarn on, right? And we don't want it extremely loose. If you're extremely loose, that will have issues. And if you are super tight, you're gonna have issues. So you just want it to be, it's like Goldilocks, right? Just right. And this just comes kind of with time and practice. Because let me tell you, I have a ton of projects that I don't show anybody. They're in a drawer because they're my first ones, right? I was practicing, I was learning my machine, getting to know how to use it. Just like crocheting, I have a lot of crochet projects I don't show anybody because they were my first ones. They're not great. So now we're back. We did it one time around. We're back to our white needle. So let me show you how it should look and what I always look at before I go on. So I'll try to keep my camera as steady as possible, but here's how your cast on should look on your machine all the way around. So it's like 2 pegs and then under a needle, 2 pegs and under a needle, and that's your over and under. And this is what I look for all around the entire circle. I feel like I say all the way around way too much, so sorry about that. It's like a word whisker. Going around my machine before I move on. If something doesn't look right, I either did 2 unders or 2 overs or something like that, which happens, and then I just take it off and I redo it. So as long as it looks like this, we're good. And we're back at our start, and hopefully you can kind of see that tension. So it's kind of up underneath these little guys too. So it's not super loose and it doesn't look really tight, right? So now let's do our first row, okay? This is our little tension guy. I'm gonna put him in here, but we're gonna talk about him later, okay? But because the next important step is when you're doing your first row or you're changing color or you ran out of your skein and you need to replace another one, when you go to put the yarn in the yarn holder, it has to come all the way in the front right here, all the way through the back. If it's like this, it's not going to catch on the needles and it will unravel your whole project as well. So here's an example, because this is over and now we're gonna go, this one was under. So when it's all the way in, see as it goes, it's catching that needle. So it has to be all the way through the front. And this is what I was messing up a lot in the beginning too. And I still do it sometimes, especially when I'm changing colors. I'm not paying attention, especially if you're sitting down and looking right here, and it will be back here and I'll do it and it messes up the whole project and I have to redo. So you always want to make sure, take your time right here, or you'll learn in time like I do. Every time I mess it up, I'm like, why didn't I just take one more second to look? So let's just do one row. Okay, we're back to the front. So this was row number 1. Let me show you how it should look. So here is what it's gonna look like. Since it's our first row, it's kind of doing it every other. There's like a loop and then no loop, a loop and then no loop, because this is its first time around. Once we do our second, third, fourth row, every single one of these little teeny pegs will have a loop around it. But this is how it should look. It's kind of like an, I know it's not an X, but I kind of say it's like an X. And this is what I look at too before I move on to do any more rows, because once this is fine, then you're usually golden. Besides, you know, tuck stitches or drop stitches, which we all can get. But once it looks like this, your project shouldn't be unraveling, because this is gonna lock it into place for your foundation. So now I'm just going to show you an example of when we're going around, see how it's catching there. If it's not in there, watch this needle. Bink, totally misses it. And if that continues to happen, it's just, you're starting your project over. That's what's happening, I feel like, because it's gonna go all the way around since it's not catching. Now your project's going to just, drop off your machine. Isn't that lovely? So that's what happens. So if it does that, you just know it wasn't in this yarn tensioner all the way in there. And if you're like me, that can be frustrating, and you go, take another second just to make sure it's there. So now I just did 3 rows correctly in the tensioner, and I will show you what that should look like. That's how it should look once you're at your 3rd row. If you don't see this tuck and you actually see like a strand going horizontal, it's dropped a stitch somewhere. And so usually it probably just didn't get casted on correctly, or it missed, the hook missed it somehow. And it's just, at this point, it's just so easy to just take it off and undo, because we're only 3 cranks in, right? So here's how it should look. If it looks like this, I'll give you a little top view. And so I will say, as I'm going around, I'm kind of always keeping my eye here, but also kind of keeping my eye over here, kind of back and forth, making sure it's down under these pegs, that there's no, let me show you. If it's like hooked just like that and not pushed all the way down, it needs to be pushed there, that can be a tension issue. So I'm kind of always looking here and back and forth. So just take your time and be patient, and do some just practice projects for yourself. Crafting, crocheting, knitting, it's for fun, it's for enjoyment. So just enjoy it, and know maybe the first few projects, they're just your projects. They're not for anybody else. So I hope this helps. I'll do more of a tutorial on this little tension guide, but I was trying to make this as short and sweet as possible. So thank you so much. I appreciate all of you for watching my videos and for commenting and asking questions. I really appreciate it. So like and follow for more, and happy crafting.